More disastrous news as it concerns the environment under President Donald Trump. The New York Times here with a new report showing how the administration plans to aggressively roll back more Obama administration protections aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the Times explains that in the next few months, the White House will complete the rollback of the most significant federal effort to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Initiated during the Obama administration, it will expand the efforts to impose Mr. Trump's hardline views on other nations, building on his retreat from the Paris Accord and his recent refusal to sign a communique to protect the rapidly melting Arctic region unless it was stripped of any references to climate change. Because we cannot have any sort of references to climate change whatsoever. And they add, in what could be Mr. Trump's most consequential action yet, his administration will seek to undermine the very science on which climate change policy rests. So they're going after science. Well, now, why? Well, as you're going to see, it's because it's politically inconvenient. Now, Trump officials are directing many of the administration's researchers and scientists to severely restrict their modeling of climate change and global warming going forward. Instead of projecting possible climate scenarios up through 2100, the administration will cut the models off at 2040, at which point many of the extreme effects of climate change are unlikely to have been felt. So they're restricting the modeling. Now, the administration says, oh, no, it's prudent to have more short-term models so that they're more accurate. Now, look, do they have a little bit of a point? Sure. Some of those models that go out to 2100 might be off a little bit. Again, they are computer models. They can be refined. They can be fixed with new information. And it's always changing. It's always evolving. But you can still create a a basic policy prescription to deal with that, even when you're looking so far out. By cutting it down to 2040, you're actually limiting that, and therefore you're kind of limiting the scope of what kind of policies you would use to attack this problem. And so it cuts off research into the most dire impacts of climate change, which are set to happen, of course, later this century, which is yet to be felt. Now, we're already feeling climate change right now, but it's not gotten to the point of where it's disastrously calamitous yet. And it will be. Michael Oppenheimer, a Princeton professor of geosciences and international affairs, told the Times that ignoring the worst-case scenario is, quote, like designing cars without seatbelts or airbags. And without the U.S. government involved in these efforts, valuable scientific findings might be delayed or missed. Now, hopefully, only just delayed. And I love the point about cars without seatbelts or airbags. Well, there was a time where our cars did not have seatbelts or airbags. And who were the ones that were fighting the hardest against those things? Big corporations and conservatives. I mean, they fought them tooth and nail. Not only that, but these companies also fought against outlawing lead in gasoline. And so corporations, with their paid lackeys in Congress, they tried to do that. Thankfully, they were unsuccessful. They got the lead out of the gasoline. And then, of course, lead levels in people's blood ended up dropping dramatically, which reduced violence, as lead is actually linked to more violence and aggression. Now those same corporations, as I said, are trying to outlaw a part of climate science or limit climate science. As for Trump, I don't think he personally cares about science or scientific facts or anything like that. No, apparently it's about his ego. Mr. Trump, according to the article, is less an ideologue than an armchair naysayer about climate change, according to people who know him. He came into office viewing agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, or what he would call it, the Department of Environmental, as bastions of what he calls the deep state, and his contempt for their past work on the issue is an animating factor in trying to force them to abandon key aspects of their methodology that they use to try to understand the causes and consequences of a dangerously warming planet. For Mr. Trump, they add, climate change is often the subject of mockery. Yes, the planet being on fire, not literally, but figuratively, is such a great thing to mock. Wow, warming temperatures and all the devastating effects. including mass migrations. Like, you think immigration from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador is bad. Well, just wait till there are places that either are underwater, Pacific Islands, or places that can no longer grow their own food because the climate has changed. That mass migration is going to make this, the unaccompanied children, the current so-called crisis at the border, way, way worse. Now, there's more. His views are also influenced mainly by friends and donors like Carl Icahn, the New York investor who owns oil refineries, and the oil and gas billionaire Harold Hamm, both of whom pushed Mr. Trump to deregulate the energy industry. I have to note that Trump, Hamm, and Icahn are not going to be personally feeling the impacts of climate change, and not necessarily everybody who's watching will feel most of these disastrous impacts. It will be mainly poor people and generations yet to come who will feel the worst impacts. So a lot of these billionaires and a lot of these politicians say, it's not going to affect me, so why should I stop making money? And that kind of goes to show you who they are. Look, Trump himself has no intellectual curiosity and goes along with his buddies in industry, not surprising, who most certainly know that they are destroying the environment but don't care, who just back up his own innate biases against science and against factual information. Again, he's not a smart person. He laughs at the face of science and facts. So he's not going to be on the side of it. He's going to be on the side of the people that tell you, no, Donald, you're right all along. Climate change is a hoax, a Chinese hoax made up by Al Gore and the Chinese to hurt industry. It's climate change is great, and so just keep deregulating and undoing everything that dastardly Obama had already done, and then you'll be great. Everything is great. Now, what's worse, Donald Trump, or the CEOs at ExxonMobil and all those companies that know the truth, but just don't care about what kind of impact they're having? I think we know the answer to that. And it's not Donald Trump. He is a symptom of the disease. But the CEOs and those who are allowing this to happen while knowing the truth, they are climate nihilists. Look, they know they're old. They know they're going to die before they're affected. So, and the reason that I call them nihilists is because they're determined to take the rest of us down if it helps them make an extra dollar. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.